Don Russell said, I work for the other side. I work for Barry Hankerson. I work for the Alphabet Boys. So let's dispel that bullshit. If I were working for Barry Hankerson, if I were working for the FBI, the feds, the Alphabet Boys, if I were truly working against Robert, I wouldn't have done all of the things that I've done to help him. But most importantly, I would not have alerted him to things that I knew. This is communication, and I'm not going to show you all of it because it's private communication between me and Robert's lawyers. February 6, 2021, I was emailing Nicole. Don Russell told me months ago Robert gave permission for Don to get intellectual property from the warehouse and release it overseas to raise money to hire new lawyers. Santee allowed Don Russell to take crates of Robert's intellectual property from the warehouse, and Don has it in his house in the basement and Masters in California. June and Don let Bruce come stay with them when he got released in July 2020. Bruce told me he saw crates of Rob's work in Don's house. I told him to videotape what Don had. I cut the communication off there because it's personal between Robert's lawyers. So this proves that February 2021, I told Robert's attorneys what was going on. And I told you I knew June of 2020 when Don told me himself. I've told Keith at that time. On November 16th, 2020, I was telling Keith he needs to get back Robert's stuff from Don. And remember I said Bruce and Carrie were taking the stuff, trying to take it away from Don and putting it out at Carrie's house. So this is telling Keith, Sony owns R. Kelly Masters. That's what Rob was trying to get back as an employee with contracts. Sony and others own pieces of all of R. Kelly's intellectual property. All recordings, DVDs, CDs, or any material can be seized by Sony at any time. Don, Bruce, Carrie have Sony property, not Robert. So for that reason, they need to return all of its stat. That was November 16th, 2020. And remember I told you when I told June about, I asked June, why did Don have boxes of Rob's stuff when he was showing all of his materials on social media, his awards, his personal pictures and things like that. And she was saying, if Rob wants it back, he can ask for it back. They'll return it. And possession is 9/10 of the law. So I was alerting Keith November 16th, 2020. When someone responds with possession is 9/10 of the law, their intention is to keep what they have in their possession until you force them. Sony owns R. Kelly's Masters, all intellectual property, and his image and likeness up until they released him 2019. So by law, Sony owns all property pertaining to R. Kelly. That's what Rob was trying to get back. That's what he admitted to in Admit. As an employee with contracts, Sony and others own majority of all R. Kelly's. And I mean, it was too long for me to put all that information on here, but you see that I communicated with Keith November 16th, 2020. So Don Russell would like to deflect. Choke would like to deflect anybody that says I work for Barry Hankerson and I'm not showing my face because I'm really the opposition working with the feds and the FBI. I've just shown you verifiable proof that's not true. If I worked for Barry Hankerson, I would have been telling Barry Hankerson about all of the shit Don had in his basement of Robert's. I would not have told Keith. I would not have told Nicole. I would not have told Robert. I would have told the people I'm working with. If I was working for Barry Hankerson, I knew from the dates that you see on that communication back in 2020 that Don had Robert's possessions in the basement of his mother's building. And I knew he had the masters in California. Barry's in California. If Barry is this big gangster that everybody says he is, Barry would have gotten that shit out of Don's basement. And I have a preponderance of evidence by my actions since 2019. Everything that I've done, everything that I've said was to help Robert. I've shown verifiable proof of me sending communications to people, not only to alert them when Robert's possessions were stolen by Don Russell. I alerted his lawyers. I alerted Robert. I alerted Keith, who is in control of Rob's money. So I told the people who could tell Rob. If I worked for Barry Hankerson, there's one person I would have told, Barry Hankerson. And Barry Hankerson would have gone into that basement and taken that shit. That's nothing for you to go up in there. It's nothing for you to roll up on Don in California and whoop his little fat ass and go take the shit. Everything was unsecured. You know that because he claims some shit was taken off the backseat of his car. He had all of R. Kelly's intellectual property unsecure. So if I were working against Robert, I knew where the shit was. I knew the layout of the house because June and Bruce had told me. I knew the shit was in the basement. I knew June was on the top floor. And I knew Bruce was on the level that he was on, the first floor. I also knew when Don kicked Bruce out. So June was living in that building by herself. Don was out in California. They kicked Bruce out. It would have been nothing for Barry Hankerson or the feds or any other person they claim I'm working for to hurt Robert. I could have easily gotten up in that house because I talked to June and Bruce regularly. I knew when they were not home. I knew when they were not in the house. It wouldn't have been shit for somebody to break in that basement window and take every fucking thing up out of there. I knew where Don was in California. It wouldn't have been shit for people to roll up on him, put a gun to his head, and get those masters. If I were working for Barry Hankerson, as they like to keep repeating, if I were working for the feds, the alphabet boys, as they keep repeating, I would have hurt Robert in the best way to hurt him. I would have gotten possession of all of his shit. So the fact that I told Nicole, the fact that I told Keith and told Robert, along with everything else I did, is absolute proof in any court of law I'm not working against Robert. The fact that I am the one Greenberg told he was withdrawing from the case, and I immediately contacted Nicole, Tom, and Bonjing and told them and let Robert know. Within 24 hours, I had a list of names, 10 top sharpshooters in Chicago that he can interview and get on his case. So we've already been on this since November. If I were not for Robert, I would not have done that. Greenberg would have told me, and I would have remained silent. and let him blindside Robert. So Robert has in fact known for 2 months that Greenberg was going to withdraw because Sharron, I am not working for Barry Hankerson. I have never worked for Barry Hankerson. I am not working for or with the FBI or any other entity against Robert. I have been here since day one to help Robert. And the people that keep saying I don't show my face are trying to stop me from helping Robert because they are out here harming Robert. Watch them go to the local Piggly Wiggly and find another bust-ass lawyer and try to get him on the case. Watch them bring in another liquor store lawyer to try to hurt Robert from the inside. I've shown you verifiable proof of my actions, and you've seen me move since day one. Not once have you seen a Cash App on my channel. Not once have you seen me panhandling for money. You've seen me out here helping Robert Kelly 24/7 at the expense of my own life. I've behaved who the fuck I am.